And welcome back to CBS News New York. It's the 8 o'clock hour. The main jurors have been selected in the criminal trial of former President Trump, but the case is far from over. Joining us now to discuss the first week is Hofstra University law professor James Sample. James, good to see you.
Good to see you, Chris.
So let's ask you this. We talked earlier in the week, and we talked about the rule of law kind of winning the day here and things moving at a pretty quick pace. Let me ask you this. Your thoughts on the pace of how things are going with jury selection, which everyone thought, by all accounts, was going to take quite some time.
It is going much more quickly than anticipated, Chris, and you're right. When we spoke earlier this week, I estimated sort of what most observers were estimating, that it was going to take at least a week and probably 2 weeks. This sorted out, and it started out looking like it might take even longer than that. I mean, you're a former football player. This started out like it was going to be ground and pound, a defensive battle that was going to be very, very slow, and then all of a sudden it was a high-flying scenario where we were seating jurors left and right, and so it does appear, with the entire 12 jurors seated now, and now just trying to get 5 more alternates, that the case, which looked like it was going to go very slowly, is on pace to start opening arguments on Monday.
Are you surprised that both the prosecution and the defense have been able to come to an agreement on these 12 individuals so far?
I'm not so much surprised that they've been able to come to an agreement as I am surprised at the level of control that Judge Merchan has been able to exert over both sides in the process. I think what clearly happened here is that Justice Merchan made it clear that he was not going to tolerate what he considered to be borderline, or not going to give credence to what he considered to be borderline conflicts of interest. If a juror had, for example, expressed some modest views one way or the other about Mr. Trump generally at some point, that didn't make them that different from the average citizen. As long as they said they could be fair and impartial, Judge Merchan was basically giving the close calls to seating the juror, and that made things move much more quickly.
Let me ask you about an instance yesterday with Juror 2, a certain conservative television network basically outing this person without providing their name, but providing, profession, address, whatnot, and this juror then asked to be removed. Is that the tactic here for the prosecution, or excuse me, for the defense at least, to try to compromise a lot of the jury members and make them uncomfortable and want to remove themselves from seating on this case?
It's a really good question, and the honest answer is I don't know if that's a strategy, or if that's just part of the strategy of the defense team, or part of the strategy of the overall sort of universe and empire that is surrounding Donald Trump, including that particular media organization. I do think that many journalism organizations, many outlets, including print outlets, were reporting some of the facts regarding some of the jurors, and you can make an argument that that's the freedom of the press, and that there's some value in that. On the other hand, when you start giving out the personal details, identifying details, and then adding some spin on that, like, oh, there's some concerns about this one, she might be trouble, that, especially given the groundswell of the true believers who are Donald Trump's sort of biggest fans and most loyal surrogates, is dangerous. And it's startling to think, when you really consider this is a former president, he's a very prominent candidate to be president again, and we're talking about the safety of jurors who are sitting on his case. That's organized crime kind of stuff.
Yeah, literally, just to do your civic duty, you have to worry about the safety of your life, yourself and your family. And I guess that goes to exactly kind of what you just mentioned there. I don't know why any of these news organizations, ours included, need to mention any specifics about jurors. You don't hear it about other cases. Why do we need to know what their profession is, or where they? It's just, I mean, aside from the obvious of making sure they're not biased, I don't think their background really needs to be broadcast for all to hear, for their safety, because again, this is not something they asked to do. This is something they're being called upon to do. As far as where the next steps go, the alternates get chosen. Are you thinking that opening statements probably take place Monday, and then as far as length of trial, we're looking at what, 4, 6, 8 weeks, you think?
So I agree with your analysis completely, first of all, on the jury point and on the media point. Second, I think that, yeah, it looks like we're on track for opening statements Monday. It appears that if they are able to get 5 more jurors to be alternates early today, there'll be what's called a Sandoval hearing, which is a hearing to determine what the prosecutors can introduce if Donald Trump does take the stand in terms of prior bad acts, the Jean Carroll case, things of that nature. And the estimate by those who are more versed in the details, the minutia is that this could be 4 to 6 weeks.
And just one last question before I let you go. Your impression of the former president after each day in court coming. Yesterday it was too cold in there and holding up pamphlets of basically Fox News Channel guests that have said that this case is, it's this and it's that, reading those off and then talking about not being able to go to his son's graduation. It's all stuff that's not related to the case, but that really the only talking point they have.
I think that's right. He's trying to try the case outside the courtroom when, in fact, the case will be tried inside the courtroom. And many of these claims are exaggerated hyperbole. The judge, for example, said that he will determine at a later date whether Mr. Trump can attend his son's graduation. Donald Trump is a criminal defendant in a New York courtroom. That's very different in terms of the amount of control and autonomy that he's used to.
All right. James, great to talk with you as always. We appreciate it. We'll check in with you next week when hopefully opening statements are approved and granted, and then we can discuss that from here on out. Thanks so much, James. Good to see you. Have a good weekend. Okay.